Before this weekend arrives, there is something you need to recognize, because a turning point is quietly approaching, and the overwhelming majority of people will not understand its significance until it has already passed. By the time they finally connect the dots, the opportunity created by this rare alignment will no longer be available in the same way. This coming Sunday is far more than another square on a calendar. It represents the strongest structural moment of this entire month, and perhaps even one of the defining astrological moments of this entire year. On July 19th, Mars forms an exact sextile with Saturn at 14 degrees and 42 minutes. The instant this precise connection becomes exact, an area of your life that has seemed frozen, restricted, delayed, or endlessly postponed reaches the threshold of release. What has refused to move for so long is preparing to shift. What has felt trapped is preparing to breathe again. Yet none of this is appearing without warning. Long before this day arrives, your inner world has already been responding to its approach. Think about the past several weeks. Remember those moments when every effort seemed to meet invisible resistance. Remember pushing harder only to feel as though something equally powerful continued pushing back. Perhaps you questioned your timing. Perhaps you wondered whether you had made the wrong decisions, or whether the universe itself had forgotten about you. Those thoughts were understandable, but they were not revealing the whole picture. The resistance itself was serving a purpose. Every delay was shaping conditions that needed to exist before this doorway could finally open. Even the strange urgency that has been waking some of you before sunrise, the feeling that your body already senses a change, while your conscious mind still searches for explanations, belongs to this unfolding story. If that experience has felt familiar, do not dismiss it as coincidence. There is a very specific reason your instincts have become louder, and later we will uncover exactly why your inner awareness has been responding before logic has been able to catch up. First, however, you need to understand why the days leading into Sunday have carried such unusual intensity, unlike anything else we have witnessed throughout this year. The powerful current moving through July has not been fading away. It has been transforming into something lasting, something capable of reshaping the foundation beneath your future, rather than creating only temporary disruption. Many people looked at the opening half of this month and concluded that everything was simply descending into disorder. Unexpected arguments surfaced without warning. Carefully arranged plans suddenly unraveled. A relentless sense of nervous anticipation seemed to vibrate beneath everyday life, making it difficult to relax even during quiet moments. You may have felt emotionally restless without understanding why, almost as though reality itself had begun changing its rules while you were still trying to play by the old ones. If that uncertainty left you questioning your own perceptions, you were not imagining any of it. Between July 1st and July 5th, Mars, the celestial force connected with action, conflict, determination, and pure driving will, moved rapidly through a remarkable sequence of contacts with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Pause for a moment and truly consider what that means. Within only 4 days, the planet most associated with decisive movement encountered 3 of the greatest long-term evolutionary powers in astrology. That is not merely an energetic adjustment. It is an explosive chain reaction capable of accelerating transformation at extraordinary speed. On July 4th, Mars reached Uranus. If an overwhelming desire suddenly emerged inside you to escape a limiting situation, whether involving your career, an important relationship, or an identity that no longer reflected who you have become, you were witnessing the living expression of that conjunction. It did not politely ask whether you felt prepared. It did not wait until circumstances became comfortable. Instead, it shattered old patterns with remarkable force, exposing cracks that had already existed beneath the surface. Shortly afterward, Mars connected with Neptune. That same intense momentum became infused with imagination, intuition, spiritual longing, and an unmistakable awareness that your life may be intended for something far greater than the compromises you have accepted until now. Before your emotions had enough time to absorb that realization, Mars continued into its contact with Pluto, illuminating everything hidden beneath conscious awareness. Long-buried fears, uncomfortable truths, unresolved emotional weight, and unfinished chapters that had remained locked away suddenly began demanding recognition. The emotional impact of that progression cannot be overstated. If this month has left you mentally exhausted, emotionally overwhelmed, physically depleted, or stretched beyond what felt manageable, there is an understandable reason. Your entire system has been processing an extraordinary concentration of transformational energy compressed into an incredibly short period of time. Yet there is another layer that many people never recognize. None of those experiences were designed simply to tear your life apart. They were preparing something much larger. Every challenge, every emotional surge, every uncomfortable realization became part of the material needed for what comes next. Imagine immense force gathering silently behind a closed gate. The universe has not been wasting energy. It has been storing it with extraordinary precision. This Sunday marks the moment when everything accumulated finally finds direction and purpose. To fully appreciate why so many areas of life have seemed impossible to move, we must turn our attention towards Saturn, because Saturn has quietly carried much of the responsibility for the heaviness you have been feeling. Saturn currently occupies Aries, a placement that naturally creates profound tension because the essential nature of Saturn conflicts with the instinctive nature of Aries. Saturn teaches patience, discipline, careful construction, responsibility, and progress earned step by step through persistence. Aries, by contrast, seeks immediate movement, fearless independence, rapid action, and swift results. When Saturn attempts to express itself through Aries, the experience resembles trying to construct an enormous cathedral while standing inside the middle of a violent hurricane. The plans remain intact. The materials still exist. The vision has not disappeared. Yet every attempt to build encounters relentless external pressure, forcing each step to require greater endurance than expected. As July 19th arrives, Saturn has slowed dramatically, standing almost motionless at 14 degrees and 42 minutes of Aries, while preparing for its retrograde station on July 26th. Whenever a planet appears nearly stationary before changing direction, astrologers understand that its influence becomes extraordinarily concentrated. The symbolism grows heavier, sharper, and impossible to ignore. A stationary Saturn represents one of the most powerful manifestations of restraint and structural pressure found anywhere in astrology. It resembles an immovable barrier standing directly across the road ahead. Every postponed opportunity, every unexpected obstacle, every door that seemed to close just as you approached it, every carefully prepared plan that suddenly lost momentum without any logical explanation. All of those experiences reflected Saturn's powerful influence, shaping the path long before you realized why the journey had become so demanding. And understanding that truth is essential, because the exact sextile arriving this Sunday reveals why every moment of resistance has been preparing the foundation for what is about to unfold next. There is one truth about Saturn that many people overlook, and missing it causes them to misunderstand every difficult season they have ever lived through. Saturn is not interested in creating suffering for its own sake. Its purpose is never simple punishment. Instead, it introduces resistance because resistance reveals what cannot be seen under comfortable conditions. It quietly asks whether your vision is strong enough to survive uncertainty. It asks whether your dedication is authentic or whether it disappears the moment progress slows down. For many months, Saturn has been examining the strength of everything you have tried to build. Every unexpected delay, every frustrating pause, every obstacle that forced you to question yourself has acted like a hidden examination. At times, you may have believed that nothing was happening, that your effort was disappearing into silence without producing results. Yet, beneath the surface, something much more important was taking place. The foundation beneath your future was being tested under enormous pressure to determine whether it could support what is coming next. That is why this Sunday represents such a profound turning point. If you continued showing up even when there was no visible reward, if you kept moving forward despite the feeling that nothing was changing, if you remained committed while doubt repeatedly whispered that giving up would be easier, then this alignment represents the moment when endurance begins transforming into opportunity. The symbol that unlocks this transition is Mars. It becomes the force that finally interacts with every barrier Saturn has spent months constructing. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, July 19th, Mars reaches 14 degrees and 42 minutes of Gemini and forms an exact sextile with Saturn, which simultaneously stands at 14 degrees and 42 minutes of Aries. This exact degree is far more than a technical measurement. It marks the instant when two very different planetary principles begin cooperating with extraordinary precision. Something remarkable emerges from that cooperation. Mars governs Aries, meaning Saturn has been traveling through the domain ruled by Mars during this entire period. In symbolic terms, Saturn has been carrying out its work inside Mars territory, relying upon the energetic framework established by the planet that rules initiative, courage, action, and determination. Now the relationship changes. Mars extends a harmonious sextile back towards Saturn, creating a balanced exchange between movement and structure. It is almost as though the sky itself acknowledges everything that has been patiently assembled throughout the difficult months and responds by revealing where the opening has always existed. The walls Saturn created are no longer viewed simply as barriers. They become structures containing hidden entrances that were impossible to recognize until this precise moment arrived. This is the deeper mechanism operating beneath the astrology. Mars in Gemini contributes exceptional mental flexibility, strategic awareness, intellectual adaptability, and the capacity to recognize possibilities that force alone could never uncover. Rather than charging directly into every obstacle, this placement excels at discovering overlooked pathways. It identifies the one conversation capable of changing an entire situation. It notices the single adjustment that transforms repeated failure into measurable progress. It uncovers solutions hidden inside complexity, instead of trying to overpower complexity through sheer effort. At the same time, Saturn supplies exactly what Mars has been missing throughout the explosive energy of early July. Saturn offers discipline. It provides direction. It gives every impulse a lasting framework so that energy is no longer scattered across countless competing priorities. Without Saturn, Mars in Gemini often races toward numerous ideas simultaneously, constantly shifting attention before any one vision has time to mature. Inspiration becomes abundant, yet completion remains elusive. Under this sextile, however, Saturn anchors every movement with extraordinary stability. Each decision gains greater permanence. Every carefully chosen action has the potential to produce results that continue long after the initial moment has passed. That is why this day carries such extraordinary momentum. Its strength does not come from removing every challenge standing before you. The challenges themselves may remain. Instead, this alignment equips you with something far more valuable than an obstacle-free path. It provides the rare combination of brilliant strategy and unwavering discipline. It allows intelligence and persistence to operate together rather than separately. Piece by piece, obstacle after obstacle, what once appeared immovable begins yielding to carefully directed effort. The process is deliberate rather than reckless. It is precise rather than impulsive. Because of that precision, progress becomes far more difficult to reverse. If you have been waiting for unmistakable confirmation that the time to begin moving has finally arrived, this celestial conversation may represent exactly that signal. Yet the story becomes even more extraordinary because the Mars-Saturn sextile is not the only remarkable event unfolding this Sunday. Earlier, I mentioned the unusual sense of urgency many people have been experiencing, the quiet awareness that something significant approaches even though no obvious explanation seems available. The deeper reason now comes into focus. On the very same day that Mars and Saturn complete their exact sextile, another breathtaking pattern forms across the heavens, creating one of the most uncommon geometric arrangements found in modern astrology. At 1 o'clock during the night, the moon enters Libra. As it continues through the opening degrees of that sign, it establishes harmonious relationships with Jupiter in Leo, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Aries, and Pluto in Aquarius. Together, these 6 celestial bodies create 6 interconnected points that complete the sacred geometric figure known as the Star of David. Astrologically, this formation is recognized as a grand sextile, among the rarest and most balanced configurations that can appear. Every connection supports the next, creating a continuous circuit through the fire and air signs while simultaneously linking each of the major outer planets into one integrated design. For a brief span of time, the sky itself appears to organize into an elegant pattern of perfect cooperation, as though countless separate currents suddenly begin flowing together toward one unified purpose. This is why that unexplained urgency has felt so persistent. It is not simply nervous anticipation. It is not irrational fear. It is not evidence that something is wrong within you. Instead, your deeper awareness has been responding long before your conscious thoughts found language to explain it. Your inner system has sensed that an unusually coherent energetic pattern is approaching, preparing you before the alignment becomes visible through ordinary perception. The Star of David does not impose outcomes upon anyone. It does not compel action against your will. What it does is create extraordinary openness. During this brief interval, the distance between your inner vision and your ability to give that vision tangible form becomes dramatically smaller. Moments of meaningful coincidence may appear with unusual frequency. Insights may arrive suddenly without logical preparation. Conversations, opportunities, and relationships that previously seemed disconnected can unexpectedly reveal how perfectly they fit together. Ideas that once felt confusing may suddenly become unmistakably clear. Possibilities that appeared unreachable can begin looking surprisingly attainable. Yet there remains one vital detail that cannot be ignored. This remarkable alignment does not remain available for long. The moon moves swiftly through the zodiac, and because of that rapid motion, the complete geometry exists only for a limited number of hours before dissolving once again. The opening arrives quickly, and it disappears just as quickly. Those who recognize its significance while it is active, and who choose to respond during that brief period instead of waiting for greater certainty, may eventually look back on this Sunday as the unmistakable moment when the direction of their lives began changing in ways they never expected. And understanding what becomes possible during those precious hours prepares us for the final piece of this extraordinary unfolding story. Some people will recognize the significance of this moment, the instant it arrives, while others will allow it to pass unnoticed, treating it as nothing more than another ordinary day before returning to their routines without a second thought. Those who fail to recognize what is unfolding may not immediately understand what slipped through their hands, yet the lingering sensation that an important opportunity was missed could remain with them for many weeks afterward. This is not an influence that patiently waits for hesitation to disappear. It arrives, reveals itself, and continues moving forward. Long before this Sunday appears, the universe has already been preparing you by offering a glimpse of what this powerful alignment is designed to unlock. Only 5 days earlier, on July 14th, the new moon reached 21 degrees and 58 minutes of Cancer, while forming a direct square with the powerful stationary Saturn. That lunation was never intended to feel easy or emotionally comfortable. If memories you believed were long behind you unexpectedly resurfaced, if deeply buried emotions suddenly demanded your attention, if you found yourself confronting feelings you had quietly avoided for months or even years, then you were experiencing exactly what that new moon was meant to awaken. It was not creating emotional instability without purpose. It was guiding you toward the hidden places within yourself that required acknowledgement before genuine progress could begin. Cancer represents far more than the physical idea of home. It symbolizes belonging, emotional roots, inner protection, and the quiet foundation that allows the human spirit to feel secure regardless of changing external circumstances. When that Cancer new moon encountered the intense pressure of Saturn through a square, an important question emerged beneath every uncomfortable emotion. What truly gives you stability? Is your sense of safety built upon something permanent that lives inside you, something no outside event can easily destroy? Or has your confidence been resting upon conditions that could disappear without warning? That was the deeper examination taking place. The emotional discomfort was never evidence that you were failing. It was revealing where reinforcement was still necessary. Every uncomfortable realization became another opportunity to strengthen the invisible structure beneath your future. This preparation mattered because the extraordinary momentum arriving on July 19th cannot remain stable if it is placed upon weak emotional ground. The universe does not release powerful forward movement while allowing unstable foundations to remain untouched. Instead, it insists that the deepest layers be strengthened first, even when that process requires confronting difficult truths. Only after those emotional supports have been reinforced does lasting progress become possible. Now, having passed through the emotional intensity created by the new moon, you stand on much stronger ground. What begins this Sunday has the potential to endure because the foundation supporting it has already survived pressure. The progress available now is not designed to collapse at the first challenge. It carries resilience because you developed resilience before the opportunity itself arrived. There's another subtle process unfolding beneath the surface that deserves equal attention because it influences the way your mind operates throughout this week, and surprisingly, many astrologers have given it very little attention. Mars currently travels through Gemini, and within astrology, Mars expresses itself under the guidance of Mercury. Mars provides action, initiative, and movement, while Mercury shapes the way those actions are directed. This relationship creates an important chain of influence across the sky. At the present moment, Mercury is moving retrograde through Cancer, and that detail changes everything about how this coming breakthrough is experienced. The momentum building towards Sunday is not reckless, impulsive, or uncontrolled. Instead, every decision becomes filtered through emotional awareness, careful reflection, memory, and honest evaluation of past experience. Rather than rushing blindly toward the future, Mercury retrograde encourages thoughtful examination of everything that has already unfolded. This creates a fascinating psychological effect that many people may notice during the days leading toward the Mars-Saturn sextile. At some unexpected moment, perhaps even today, your attention may drift back toward an experience you believed was finished, a conversation whose outcome still lingers in your memory, a decision you have quietly questioned again and again, an idea you abandoned because circumstances at the time made success seem impossible. You may wonder why these old memories suddenly feel vivid again after remaining silent for so long. They are not returning without purpose. Mercury retrograde intentionally brings unfinished material back into awareness because something connected to those earlier experiences may now contain the missing piece required for what comes next. The opportunity approaching on Sunday does not necessarily arrive in the form of an entirely unfamiliar beginning. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough appears through the return of something that already belonged to your life, but needed additional time to mature. Perhaps it is a creative project you placed aside before it reached completion. Perhaps it is a relationship you believed had permanently ended. Perhaps it is a version of yourself that slowly disappeared because circumstances convinced you it could never become reality. Mercury retrograde quietly encourages another look, suggesting that conditions have evolved in meaningful ways and that what once failed under previous circumstances may now possess everything required for success. Because of that possibility, do not casually dismiss the memories, ideas, or emotional insights that rise into awareness during this week. Give them your attention, record them if necessary. Spend time reflecting upon why they have returned now instead of earlier. When Sunday arrives and Mars completes its exact sextile with Saturn, clarity regarding where to direct your energy may come not from something entirely new, but from wisdom hidden inside your own personal history. Looking backward with greater understanding may become the very action that allows you to move confidently forward. Yet the story does not conclude with Sunday, because another remarkable moment already waits beyond it. If July 19th represents the act of planting new intentions through disciplined action, then July 29th represents the time when those efforts begin revealing visible results. 10 days after the exact Mars-Saturn sextile, the full moon rises at 6 degrees and 29 minutes of Aquarius. It aligns directly along the central structure of the barbel basket, standing in conjunction with retrograde Pluto, while simultaneously opposing both the Sun and Jupiter in Leo. This full moon functions like a brilliant light shining across everything initiated during the narrow window created on July 19th. The structures you chose to build become visible. The boundaries you established encounter meaningful examination. The choices made while clarity was strongest begin revealing their real consequences in ways that cannot easily remain hidden. Whatever was quietly initiated now starts becoming observable within the external world. For those who approached the Mars-Saturn sextile with thoughtful strategy instead of impulse, who combined discipline with intelligent action, who allowed emotional honesty to guide important decisions rather than pride or ego, this Aquarian full moon carries the unmistakable feeling of confirmation. It becomes the moment when patient effort is no longer invisible, when quiet persistence finally receives undeniable recognition, and when everything strengthened beneath the surface begins revealing its enduring value for all to see. When the Aquarius full moon arrives, the reflections it brings will be impossible to ignore. If you chose to meet the opportunity presented on July 19th with courage instead of fear, you will begin recognizing unmistakable evidence that your decision was the right one. The actions you were willing to take during that narrow opening will start echoing back through your life in ways that validate every difficult choice you made. The progress may appear through circumstances, through conversations, through opportunities, or simply through the quiet certainty that what once felt uncertain has finally become real. Yet the same light that reveals success also reveals absence. Those who allowed hesitation to become their answer, who watched the opportunity pass without responding, who remained trapped inside familiar patterns because uncertainty felt safer than action, will encounter a different experience beneath this full moon. They will not simply observe what has changed. They will clearly recognize what never had the chance to begin. The purpose of that realization is not cruelty, nor is it cosmic punishment. It is a lesson designed to leave a permanent imprint upon awareness, so that when another meaningful opening eventually appears, it will no longer be ignored. Every alignment serves a specific function. None of them exist without intention. Every energetic invitation eventually reaches a moment when its consequences become visible. In that sense, July 29th becomes the natural revelation of everything initiated on July 19th. Cause meets effect. Intention meets outcome. Choice meets undeniable evidence. Yet there is another truth that deserves honest attention. because it explains why so many people will completely overlook the extraordinary nature of this Sunday. Most individuals will wake up, move through their routines, and experience nothing they immediately recognize as extraordinary. That does not mean the alignment lacks power. It means this particular aspect operates differently from many others. A sextile does not overwhelm your life by force. Unlike a conjunction that arrives with dramatic intensity whether you welcome it or not, or an opposition that creates unavoidable confrontation, a sextile offers possibility without removing personal responsibility. It quietly creates an opening and then patiently waits for human participation. It does not force decisions. It does not carry anyone across the threshold. It simply presents the pathway and leaves the next step entirely in your hands. That characteristic makes this one of the most selective forms of astrological energy, because only conscious participation allows its full potential to unfold. Those who recognize the invitation respond with action. They finally make the phone call they have delayed for months. They begin the project they have repeatedly imagined without starting. They choose the honest conversation they have avoided. They commit themselves to the opportunity they have been circling without fully embracing. One deliberate decision becomes the spark that activates momentum capable of carrying them much farther than they expected. The remarkable acceleration that follows does not emerge from luck alone. It begins because they were willing to cooperate with the opening placed before them. Others, however, may spend Sunday exactly as they spend countless ordinary weekends. They continue scrolling through distractions, postponing important choices until another time, briefly sensing an unfamiliar clarity before dismissing it as meaningless. Nothing external prevents them from acting. The universe does not withhold the opportunity from them. Instead, the invitation simply remains unused. They stay where they are, not because fate has rejected them, but because they chose not to turn the key that had already been placed within reach. That is the quiet wisdom contained inside every sextile. It amplifies conscious effort. It strengthens intentional action. It supports those willing to move with awareness. Yet it remains almost completely inactive for those who expect transformation without participation. The universe accelerates movement that has already begun, but it does not replace personal choice with automatic miracles. As this remarkable Sunday approaches, the energetic current is already becoming stronger. Perhaps you have sensed it without fully understanding why. Perhaps there has been a subtle feeling that something important is approaching, a quiet pressure building beneath everyday life that refuses to disappear. The fact that you have remained here until this point suggests your awareness is already becoming more sensitive than most people realize. Between now and Sunday, the greatest gift you can give yourself is complete clarity. Allow yourself to become absolutely honest about what you have truly been trying to create. Identify where your progress has repeatedly stopped. Look directly at the place where movement has felt impossible. The Mars-Saturn sextile is not designed to invent your purpose on your behalf. Instead, it strengthens the purpose you have already chosen. If your vision remains uncertain, your energy may scatter in multiple directions without producing lasting results. But if your intention is already firmly established, if deep within yourself you know exactly what future you have been preparing to build, then this alignment provides the discipline, strategy, and persistence necessary to transform that vision into lived reality. Not at some distant point in the future, but beginning with the choices made during this extraordinary opening. Focus your attention on one obstacle rather than many. Do not become overwhelmed by every challenge surrounding your life. Instead, identify the single barrier that matters most. Discover the one place where meaningful progress would create the greatest change. During Sunday's alignment, Mars traveling through Gemini offers the intellectual flexibility to recognize an opening that previously remained invisible. What once appeared to be a solid wall may suddenly reveal an entrance that had always existed beyond your immediate perception. At the same time, Saturn in Aries contributes the endurance and determination required to step confidently through that opening without retreating into familiar fears. This becomes the moment when delays begin losing their authority over your future. Frustration gradually transforms into focused determination. The immense pressure accumulating since the beginning of July finally discovers its proper direction. Instead of exploding without purpose, it becomes something infinitely more effective. Controlled movement, intentional progress, lasting advancement built upon patience instead of impulse. The universe is not asking you to arrive at Sunday as a flawless version of yourself. Perfection has never been the requirement. Presence is. Full participation is. The willingness to stand inside the moment with complete awareness, trusting that the momentum withheld throughout previous weeks is finally ready to move through your life. Once that doorway opens and you choose to cross it with confidence, clarity, and deliberate intention, the astrological architecture supporting this alignment becomes extraordinarily difficult to reverse. Lasting momentum is never created through luck alone, nor does it depend entirely upon mysterious forces beyond human control. It emerges through the union of courage with discipline, vision with patience, inspiration with unwavering commitment. That powerful union reaches its exact expression this Sunday. The only remaining question is whether you will consciously meet it, or whether you will become one of countless people who awaken on Monday sensing that something fundamental has changed without ever realizing. The world quietly shifted while their attention was somewhere else. Opportunities of this magnitude do not pause indefinitely, and configurations like this do not return often. If you have stayed with this message until the very end, thank you for sharing your time and attention. I truly hope these insights help you move into the days ahead with greater awareness and confidence. If you found value in this journey and would like to continue exploring future astrological insights together, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support genuinely helps these conversations continue reaching those who need them most. I would also love to hear what you are experiencing, so feel free to share your thoughts and personal observations in the comments. Until our next exploration together, take good care of yourself, stay aware of the signs unfolding around you, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.